The Justice Department has finally released some of the highly anticipated Epstein files. More than 300,000 pages of documents related to the late convicted sex offender were made public today. They include photos, flight logs, grand jury testimony, and a lot of heavy redactions.
Paris Hilton's perfect comeback just exploded in her face. Everyone thought her film premiere was the final proof she'd outrun her past, until the Epstein files started whispering her name. What began as a few blurred photos and old rumors has turned into a chain reaction of panic. Insiders claim new victims are coming forward, studio execs are locking phones, and Hilton's team has gone radio silent. Hours after the Los Angeles red carpet on January 20th, the same image, Hilton beside Ghislaine Maxwell and Donald Trump in 2000, flooded feeds as leaked DOJ documents hinted that certain redacted names matched high-profile female connectors. By dawn, the hashtag #CancelParis was trending. Her film's January 30th release flagged as under review, and staff at the distributor were told no comment under any circumstances. But why is Hilton denying memory of Maxwell when the photo is everywhere, and why did her publicist vanish from press events overnight? The leaks haven't even been fully decoded yet, and already the cracks are spreading toward the people who built her empire. The question now isn't whether Hilton's career survives, but how far the fallout reaches when the next batch of files drops.
If you tend towards cynicism or skepticism, you might wonder, is everything about Epstein and his powerful male friends, is that coming out? That remains to be seen.
By morning, the premiere that was supposed to crown Paris Hilton's return looks like a controlled collapse. Her pink gown, the family lineup, the celebrity guests, all of it now replayed online beside screen grabs from December's Department of Justice release. Those documents, more than 20,000 pages long, were supposed to end the Epstein file speculation. Instead, they ignited it. Somewhere inside the redactions, internet analysts claim a female associate once described as a party connector bears details that line up with Hilton's early 2000s travel and event records. The phrase alone, party connector, is enough to sink a reputation in an industry built on optics. By lunchtime, a studio insider leaks that a pause in marketing has been ordered for Infinite Icon. No statement, no correction, nothing. Even the film's website goes dark for an hour, replaced briefly by an error page before reappearing without the premiere photos. It's not an accident, one publicist says off record. It's triage.
Apparently not everything. We've got indications from the Department of Justice that there are things that are going to be withheld, at least, or handed out at a later date. Now, the law in this case that was passed by Congress and signed by President Trump required that all the Epstein files be released by midnight tonight, Friday, December 19th.
The official line from Hilton's team remains buried under soft distractions. Her last on-record words, "I'm such a good clickbait name," play on repeat across social feeds, clipped from her Times interview months earlier, now weaponized. It's that phrase, insiders whisper, that pushed the story from gossip into crisis. Clickbait name becomes a rallying point for the online mob, proof that Hilton herself once invited the attention she's now drowning in. Meanwhile, the People interview from the same night, where she calls her children "my world," gets ripped apart for irony. The image of a proud mother smiling between two toddlers in pink bomber jackets is now contrasted against the 2000 fashion show photo with Ghislaine Maxwell and Donald Trump. Same pose, same practiced smile, different decade. Commenters post the two side by side with captions like, "full circle." A producer who attended the premiere says the chatter inside the after-party was worse than the press coverage. You could feel it, they claim. Nobody wanted to be photographed near her. Here's where the story starts to bend. The leaks aren't only old photos or hearsay. They come from inside the political chaos of the Epstein file release. Congressional committees are at war over the blacked-out names, arguing about transparency. And in that noise, new batches of partially visible documents are surfacing through anonymous accounts. One file, dated 2006, mentions female recruiters from the entertainment field. Another, from a 2011 email thread, references LA social figures once courted by Ghislaine. None of it names Hilton directly, but each phrase lands like a trapdoor under her brand. Insiders say publicists from multiple talent agencies have started combing client portfolios for any hint of past overlap with Epstein's orbit. It's quiet panic. Emails marked urgent, but no one daring to forward them. A major entertainment lawyer describes it as the moment everyone realizes there's no such thing as being too far removed. The Justice Department insists the redactions are for privacy, but the timing, 10 days before Hilton's theatrical release, feels surgical.
I know, but we have a congressional act now to requiring the release, but they're going to say, you know what?
Subject to
Tom
redaction.
Hanks, it's unfair that he was mentioned because he was eating Skittles.
Subject to redaction. Subject to redaction.
And we all know what that means. That's to protect.
That's why I'm saying you will never be satisfied with what's released.
And that timing cuts even deeper when placed beside Hilton's history of image control. For 2 decades, she's turned scandal into strategy, from reality show chaos to a DJ career to a carefully orchestrated rebranding as Survivor, Mother, Mogul. Infinite Icon was built as the full-circle redemption, financed partly through family channels and global streaming partners. Yet, within 48 hours of its premiere, contracts are being reviewed, according to 2 distribution sources. One source close to the negotiations claims a European partner hit pause after investors demanded confirmation that Hilton's name does not appear in any upcoming Epstein disclosures. The partner allegedly referenced risk of association with underage recruitment claims. The words travel fast. Soon, every newsroom is repeating them. By the second day, Hilton's social accounts are locked down, captions edited, likes removed. Only one new post appears, a photo of her children with the line, "Love is everything." It reads less like a caption than a lifeline.
Again, there was new names in some of the emails that I think investigators need to look at. In particular, I jumped on the name of a modeling agent who, in a similar fashion to Jean-Luc Brunel, who brought underage girls from overseas to Jeffrey Epstein for abuse. There was another man. What was interesting about this other individual is that he also apparently provided young models for Donald Trump's modeling agency.
The contradiction hits hardest when looking at her public silence versus her private urgency. Insiders close to her team describe frantic calls to lawyers and a containment briefing at her Beverly Hills home. No press, no statement, just a sealed circle of advisors trying to calculate which part of the storm can still be controlled. Yet the denials are already unraveling. Hilton's earlier quote, "I don't even remember meeting her," doesn't match archived event photos that show her standing within arm's reach of Maxwell at the Ann and John fashion show in 2000. That image alone, once dismissed as harmless, now reappears in every new article dissecting her denial. Even her defenders seem unsure where the truth stops and optics begin. One of them admits anonymously, "Maybe she forgot, or maybe she just didn't think it mattered back then. But right now, it matters." The selective memory, paired with the redacted file leaks, gives the story teeth it didn't have before.
There was people that had dinner over Epstein's house. Like, Epstein had dinners and had celebrities go over his house. Like, Chelsea Handler was one of the people that went over his house. I don't think Chelsea Handler is out there molesting kids.
No, I get.
You know what I mean?
No, I get that, but I think we're past that. We're beyond that point now because.
Right, you just have to be able to say, "Hey, I went to his house for dinner."
Yeah, I'm not saying because people try to do that to you with like pictures. They're like, if you was in a picture with somebody, they think,
right.
But it's like. It's the difference between being in a picture with somebody and being in 500 pictures with them.
By the third day, the studio behind Infinite Icon reportedly cancels a scheduled press junket. Official reason: scheduling adjustments. Off the record, fear of being ambushed with Epstein questions. Employees are instructed not to comment online. A staffer leaks a photo of a memo marked "internal use only," showing crisis talking points, including lines like, "Hilton condemns exploitation in all forms," and the focus remains on her creative work. But there's no record of her actually saying those words publicly. The memo feels pre-written, like a statement waiting for permission to exist. Meanwhile, hashtags linking Hilton's name with Epstein list and party recruiter continue to trend, drawing in old associates. Demi Lovato, who attended the premiere, quietly deletes photos with Hilton from her feed. Another celebrity guest turns off comments entirely. It's social distancing, 21st century style, the kind that leaves a person visible but untouchable.
Spoiler alert, season 2 is on the way, so in the end, he obviously didn't himself. Just like Jeffrey Epstein. Shut up! I know he's your friend, but I don't care.
Here's where it stops making sense. Hilton's camp insists she's innocent, yet they're acting like people who've already been caught. Every move is a retreat disguised as strategy. The documentary's promotional push vanishes. Her management cancels interviews citing family time. Yet no one close to her can explain why the production team was told to secure raw footage from the film's vault just days after the leaks. Some insiders believe there's concern that unseen clips, home videos, old party footage, could be misinterpreted if released out of context. Others think the team fears the footage might already include faces now appearing in the Epstein archive. The overlap would be catastrophic. And this is where paranoia starts breeding inside the narrative. If Hilton's not hiding anything, why lock the vaults? Why silence the staff?
Yeah. Why would you put him in the room and lock him in a bedroom, a tiny little bedroom with a roided up?
Yeah.
Just stop and think about that. You're in a room smaller than this studio that you and I are in right now with a roided up. You're sleeping with that guy.
What makes the situation even heavier is the way power seems to bend around it. The Trump administration, still in office and fighting to prove transparency in the Epstein file release, has no incentive to shield any name that could distract from political allies. Yet nothing about Hilton's sudden targeting feels random. People close to the production whisper about rivals inside the streaming platform. Executives unhappy with Hilton's control over marketing budgets. Others suspect a more personal angle. someone with access to both entertainment and politics deliberately dropping her into the conversation as a diversion from another name in the files. It's speculation, but the pattern fits too neatly to ignore. Every redacted page becomes a weapon of suggestion, and every suggestion drags her deeper into association. The irony is brutal. Hilton's empire, built on exposure, now suffocates under too much of it. The tension peaks when Hilton's father, Richard Hilton, is photographed leaving a meeting in Century City on January 23rd, 3 days after the premiere. No comment, no smile, just a car door slammed and a driver pulling away fast. The family usually moves as a unit, polished in public. This time, it's fragmentation. Kathy Hilton skips a charity event in Beverly Hills the same night, citing health reasons. Their silence feeds the machine. By now, tabloid insiders say major outlets are preparing features with phrases like, "the heiress who fell twice." Producers at late-night shows begin revising guest lineups, removing Hilton's name quietly. It's not just about guilt or innocence, it's about risk, and her name is now radioactive. Still, the most confusing part remains unresolved. If this is simply an unfortunate coincidence, why does every action from her camp mirror the behavior of someone bracing for impact? And if it isn't, what's waiting inside the next round of unsealed pages that could turn suspicion into certainty?
Bro, if you wanted to get someone, you have a high-profile witness, okay? High-profile witness in the craziest trafficking conspiracy of all time, where a guy who may or may not have been an intelligence asset or an intelligence agent or whatever the he was for whatever country, this guy he's arrested for trafficking to elites, and then you put him in jail.
Oh my God.
With that guy.
Behind the chaos now swirling around Hilton's name, something older and more deliberate begins to surface. The first connections trace back decades to a time when she wasn't a mogul or mother, but an heiress moving through parties run by people who believed rules didn't apply to them. Those same circles reappear in the newly opened documents, foundations, art events, charity galas, each cross-referenced with flight logs and email strings. The strange part is how organized it looks now, reading backward. The same surnames repeat, the same initials appear beside coded phrases like arrangements and introductions. People familiar with the investigations whisper that Hilton's inclusion might be less about individual guilt and more about how the system used recognizable faces to disguise access. In other words, visibility was the camouflage. And if that's true, the entire story of her fame, built on openness, oversharing, spectacle, turns into a perfect hiding place for other people's secrets. That's why some observers think her scandal isn't collateral damage at all. It's a warning shot to the entire generation that danced under those chandeliers, pretending not to see who was really hosting.
And I think these things like Epstein, and there's probably a bunch of other similar operations that are being run, they provide you with like a really good time, or maybe you're a high profile, extremely wealthy individual, and it's hard for you to get hosed. And some guy tells you, hey, we've got everything covered. You know, you come to my island, nothing, you know, what happens on the island stays on the island.
By now, the fight isn't only about Hilton's film or her image. It's about who controls the next leak. Multiple camps are maneuvering behind closed doors. In Washington, committees argue over the remaining sealed pages. In L.A., entertainment lawyers scramble to protect clients whose names might appear in later batches. And inside social platforms, anonymous accounts post blurry screenshots of alleged Epstein contact notes linking public figures through charity boards and donor events. One of them mentions music fund partnerships from 2015, matching the era Hilton launched her DJ career. The suggestion is poisonous, that the comeback itself was financed by people desperate to clean their own reputations through her. Whether true or not, the pattern sells. It keeps trending. For every post defending Hilton, 3 more dig through old footage looking for familiar faces behind her. That's the real problem. Once a name becomes shorthand for secrecy, the truth no longer matters. It's brand annihilation through repetition, and no amount of silence stops it. Inside the entertainment industry, fear is replacing loyalty. A veteran producer admits that publicists now treat association audits as routine damage control. Contracts are being rewritten with morality clauses so broad they could erase a career overnight. Nobody wants to be the next redaction, one insider says. Meanwhile, Hilton's allies start to fracture. Friends who once benefited from her spotlight are quietly pulling back, citing schedule conflicts. A well-known streaming executive tells reporters off-record that the problem isn't what's true, it's what's believable, and believability is slipping fast. People remember that Hilton built an empire on attention, and now attention is devouring her. Even her defenders can't explain the studio's sudden decision to hold back promotional footage featuring certain high-profile guests. The reasoning offered, respect for privacy, rings hollow when those same guests appear elsewhere without issue. It feels like preemptive erasure, as if the industry itself is redacting history before anyone else can.
The Maxwell interview is and never was part of the Epstein files. She was sentenced in 2025. This was an interview by Trump's lawyer to protect Trump from the fallout about the Epstein files. What this really is nothing but a sketchy PR stunt by the Department of Justice. And we have seen this movie before. The Maxwell interview is to the Epstein files what the Barr letter was to the Mueller investigation.
The most unsettling development comes from within the unsealed cache itself. Among the thousands of images and emails, investigators note a pattern of unidentified females photographed at public events. Faces partially blurred, but recognizable to anyone who lived through the early 2000s celebrity scene. Analysts have started mapping those images to known appearances, award shows, after-parties, runway events, and the overlap is staggering. Some claim a subset of those photos corresponds directly to an LA social calendar curated by a now-defunct PR agency once linked to the Hiltons. The suggestion lands like a grenade. If those records match, it places Hilton at the center of a network that wasn't random. It was curated. The agency itself dissolved quietly after Epstein's 2008 plea deal, its executives rebranding under new names. And yet the emails keep surfacing, like bones working their way through sand. No one inside the agency will speak publicly, but former assistants tell reporters that everyone knew who was bankrolling what. The implication is clear. The glamour wasn't free. It was sponsored, and the sponsors are back under scrutiny.
The idea that there would be a list does defy common sense for any common criminal. Why would you maintain your own evidentiary criminality? But to Jason Chaffetz's point, that doesn't mean there aren't clients. Just because there might not be a list doesn't mean there are not clients. And Ghislaine Maxwell could be put to the test on naming the names, creating the list after the fact of people that she saw.
As the noise grows, Hilton's silence becomes its own headline. Every day she refuses to comment adds another layer of intrigue. Insiders say her lawyers are split. One faction wants a full-throated denial. Another believes any statement will trigger subpoenas. Either way, the pause drags on. The longer it lasts, the more her story morphs into symbol, a stand-in for an entire culture that built wealth on discretion and spectacle. Even her philanthropic projects are now being dissected for connections, with journalists tracing donations through offshore foundations. The story isn't about one person anymore. It's about the invisible web connecting entertainment, politics, and influence. And if Hilton falls, others fall with her. That's what makes this moment so volatile. The industry pretends to move on, but you can feel the collective breath being held, waiting for the next unredacted page.
Brings it all together with a bow for her, doesn't it? She probably wants to get out early. So I think that we have more digging to do. I think the DOJ transparency effort here is the right thing, but the reason it's on a Friday, Will, is I think there are no smoking guns. There's other places we have to look.
So what really detonated here? A smear campaign, or the exposure of something she thought was buried for good? Did Hilton build her empire from the ashes of someone else's secrets? Or was she simply another face invited to the wrong table? Who's leaking the redacted fragments timed so perfectly to her biggest career moment? And why now? After 25 years of silence? The story's nowhere near finished, and neither is the fallout. Drop your theories, your connections, your take on who's pulling the strings and who's paying the price. Because this isn't ending with one canceled premiere. It's only beginning to show whose names were never meant to be seen.